Hello guys, thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Samantha. If you are new here and if you are on Spotify, hello and thank you so much for joining me today. So I didn't really know what topic to do on just because I usually have a ton of different topics that I do, but the one that stood out to me the most was Utopian Society, which kind of interests me a little bit. Some people believe in it and some people don't. And basically a short-term word for utopia or a utopian society is a society that is perfect, or basically you have all your physical needs met. It also comes from the Greek word, which basically translates into no place. So it's kind of more an imagined state. Now, having this in mind, a lot of people would obviously like to live in a utopian society. However, it's only possible if basically you were to do two things. The first thing is to put yourself into other people's beliefs and perspectives. Now, this is different than compassion, where you don't really understand, but you still have a well-being, like you want well for a person, but you don't actually know how they feel and you can't see through their eyes. So basically, you would have to step into their belief system, which either means conditioned or non-conditioned, which means that you would either have to learn how they learn this belief, even if you don't believe it yourself, and see through their perspective, which means that everything that they do makes sense to them. Now, you would have to completely throw out the concept of being a good person, just because in order for any society to exist, there has to be a polarity for it to balance. And I'm going to give two examples. One, I'm going to mention the Roman Empire, and then I'm going to mention also there's a study done with mice in the 60s. And this experimenter gave these mice everything that they could need physically. He gave them plenty of food, water, shelter, bedding. It was a pretty large enclosure, and it could enclose, I believe it was over 1,000 mice, right? So over the course of less than 3 years, all of the mice have died. And the sights that were seen in this enclosure entailed that the mice started to kind of group together or click together into different types of groups. So they kind of segregated by themselves. Also, another note that was mentioned in this experiment is that some of the mice started to embody a lot of promiscuous behavior. Some of them wouldn't really be that picky about who they would mate with, whether it was male or female, males and males, females and females. So the gender roles kind of enmeshed a little bit. So they became less picky about who they mated with, right? So there was also another sighting that was seen that some of the mice stopped eating and drinking, and there was also plenty of bedding, and a lot of the beds that were made for the mice, they basically stopped taking care of themselves. Another sighting that was pointed out that this experimenter saw was that he saw these mice, kind of a particular group of mice, really start to care about their physical appearance, and they were very beautiful mice. The males were more feminine looking, but they weren't really interested in mating. They were just kind of more about consuming and looking very pretty, and they kind of by themselves kind of form their own group away from the society. So within the continuing 2 years, they all died, so they didn't make it. So what did happen before the society eventually died is that he noticed that when the mice started to not have a purpose within this particular enclosure, they weren't given really any artsy activities or anything that would really stimulate them. They didn't really have an interest in living. So that also goes into the concept of human beings. If you don't give a person a purpose in life or a reason to be here, it's not even what makes you different or what makes you stand out, but basically the reason why you are here, life will be much more easier for you to endure. Now, this is very difficult for people that have had a very painful life or a life that involves more pain than other people. I'm also a very big believer that I have a very large heart for the homeless community. If I could house all of the homeless people, I would. But to give a homeless person money and them not have a purpose, I'm not saying that you're wasting your time, but it will be more valuable and more heartfelt to help that person know that they have a purpose rather than giving them food and shelter, because it's proven over and over again that to give persons simply food and water and a shelter is not going to be enough to sustain them for life. To find your purpose, I do have a ton of videos on how to find your purpose, but generally when a person doesn't have a purpose, it means one, they lack connection with other people, and this could either be due to not having your physical needs met, it could mean due to trauma, it could also be due to being codependent, not following your intuitions or your emotional guidance. So it's safe to say that if you were to find your purpose, or if everyone were to step into their purpose, then a utopian society would be more likely to be established. Take the Roman Empire, for example. They basically did not make it, and they were given pretty much everything that they could possibly need. However, they were known for their gruesome violence, their sexual fetishes, and they had like lots of fancy parties and a lot of food and as much as they could drink in the world, and they eventually tanked themselves. So this is my second point into, if you are given too much of something, or if you are put on this earth and don't have a purpose at all, you will essentially not make it, because just simply having food, water, and shelter, and just going to work and coming home, not establishing any connection, and also not progressing with either internally or externally, it's not going to help you in any form. Also, human beings are made to progress, and they are made to thrive, but in a way that they need some type of stimulation to help them progress. So if we're all put on an island with our essential needs, unless we were to create something like technology or something that would increase or better the society on an island, we will essentially perish. And this is very helpful when it comes to people finding their purpose. Reasons why it's so difficult is because they don't know what they want. And I think a lot of people don't actually know what they want. They think they know what they want, but they don't know what they actually want. And you can have different ones based on your entire life, right? So I think that if you become really stagnant in life, it usually means that you need to progress into something more and something different. Stop doing the same thing all the time. I feel like people are put here as kind of like, people like to think that their life is got kind of like all planned out, but really life is more of like an adventure and is kind of here to be experienced. So I guess it depends on how you want to look at it, but I don't really think that people are really meant to just eat their cake and, you know, just sit under a tree all day. And like, we need two forms of many forms of polarity, and in fact we are every single polarity that has ever existed. So if you even want to start to build a society that is happy to be around, you'll have to face your own polarities. And if you notice, especially right now, no one likes each other, and it's because they're seeing their polarity in other people. And to everything in life, there's no all bad and there's no good. So every negative experience you have to see the positive in that experience. And I really hate to use that word. It's more of, how can this benefit me, rather than positive, because I feel like that's a little bit gaslighting when someone says, how can you see the positive, right? It's more of, how can this benefit me if I didn't have it? So let's say somebody goes through an extended period of time in poverty, right? You're going to have a different mindset and a different adaptability and benefit than someone that has grown up in their wealth their whole life. But a wealthy person is going to have a different mindset and a different type of adaptability than a person that has grown up in poverty. So both parties have downfalls and both parties have positives or something that can benefit them. I'm sure a person that has grown up in wealth their whole life would walk in the hood and not be able to survive, because they're not going to have the intuition, the instincts, because they've been sheltered their whole life, or they've been handed something their whole life. So maybe that wealthy person is more giving, but you know, there are positive traits to pretty much everything. And I would like to think that there could be consideration for a utopian society, but I think that the start of a positive society in general, or a peaceful society, I'm just going to use that, peaceful society in general, is to start to build relationships in real life. And I'm sure if you ask about 90% of people, I'm just going to put just in America in general, they will all probably say that they are afraid of have kind of a deep-seated fear of people in general, for a variety of reasons, but mostly it's because of the polarity, and it's partially to do with the social media, because when you meet people in person, you kind of are letting go of the facades and masks, and I feel like people are like, they can't hide behind that anymore, so they can't really interact with people through a false identity. So I feel like people really need to look at their identity in general and really decide, like, really look at the root of that, because I'm not going to say that people shouldn't have an identity, but I feel like people kind of hold on to it. So when they see somebody or a group of people that doesn't match that identity, it's almost like their ego is like, yeah, I don't want anything to do with that because I'm afraid of, you know, blank, blank, blank. And even though we're every single type of polarity that has ever existed, I feel like the ego is like, no, not really today. So it's very important to kind of look at both aspects of yourself and to start to really look at the relationships that you have. And for some people, it's really hard to build a relationship, especially if you're kind of introverted. And all introverted and extroverted means is that extroverted kind of looks at the whole picture, whereas introverted, they see and hyper focus on every little thing, and it's like really consuming for them. So maybe start hanging out with more extroverted people, or learn from more extroverted people, or start to learn to be both would be super beneficial. But I just wanted to bring this topic up, and I hope it was helpful for you guys. And I also will leave my purposeful videos the links for them in the description box below, and also I will leave my session availability and my monthly email subscription, things like that, in the description box below. But thank you guys so much for listening. You guys are amazing, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!